It was supposed to be a regular Tuesday, the kind of day when nothing out of the ordinary happens. Just another trip from home to work, the usual routines, a cup of coffee, a glance at the headlines, and then back to the grind. But sometimes life has a way of taking unexpected turns, and for Judge Monica Daniels, that day was about to change forever. She'd just wrapped up lunch at the courthouse with some colleagues, laughing over shared stories, exchanging court gossip like the professionals they were. Then, with her mind focused on the afternoon cases awaiting her, Judge Daniels, dressed in her usual black robe, which she had taken off earlier, got back into her car and started driving home. She wasn't speeding, she wasn't swerving, she was driving like anyone else, following the rules, just heading home. But then came the blue lights in her rearview mirror. Suddenly, the peaceful day took an unexpected turn. Officer Jeremy Cooper, a man with a record and reputation that was nothing short of troubling, had decided to pull her over. A routine traffic stop, he thought. Nothing major, nothing out of the ordinary, right? What followed wasn't just a simple traffic stop. It was a reckless abuse of power, a disregard for the law, and most importantly, an ugly revelation about the officer's true nature. He didn't know who he had stopped, not yet, but what he would learn would be his undoing and the start of a series of events that would expose a toxic culture that no one had dared to confront. Judge Monica Daniels had worked tirelessly for years to get to where she was. She wasn't just any judge, she was a respected federal judge, known for her fair yet firm approach to justice. Her path had been filled with adversity, no stranger to the challenges that come with being a black woman in a predominantly white profession, but she had persevered, overcome the odds, and built a career on integrity. But Officer Cooper, as he approached her car, didn't see any of that. All he saw was another black woman driving in what he assumed was an affluent neighborhood. He assumed that she had to be uppity, entitled, and deserving of a lesson. He never knew she was a judge, but his arrogance would soon expose the truth of his own biases. The conversation began like so many other traffic stops. Cooper demanded her license and registration without explaining why she had been pulled over. Judge Daniels, ever composed, calmly asked what the reason for the stop was. It was a simple question, but one that seemed to anger him. He didn't answer, just barked at her to hand over the documents. The silence that followed, the tension in the air, was palpable. She handed over her documents, as required, but the situation only escalated from there. He took her documents and disappeared into his patrol car, leaving her waiting in the heat for what felt like an eternity. 10 minutes turned into 20, and in that silence, Judge Daniels had already begun to assess the situation. She knew what this was. She'd seen it before. Officers using their power to intimidate, to humiliate, to assert dominance. When Cooper returned, something had changed. His attitude shifted. He was no longer professional. He was aggressive. He told her to step out of the car with no real explanation. She asked again why, what law she had broken, but Cooper wasn't interested in giving her a legitimate answer. His language grew harsher, more confrontational. He demanded that she place her hands on the car, and when she refused to comply with his search request, he did something that would prove to be his biggest mistake. Cooper, without consent, began searching her purse, a clear violation of her rights. Judge Daniels protested, asking to see a warrant, reminding him of the law, but Cooper, laughing, ignored her request. He didn't care. He had already decided that this woman was going to be taught a lesson. And that's when he found it, her judicial identification card. For a moment, he hesitated. Then, with a sneer, he accused her of impersonating a federal judge. The absurdity was staggering, but Judge Daniels remained calm. She explained who she was, asking him to contact the courthouse to verify her identity. But Cooper's response was telling. "I don't care who you are. You're going to learn some respect." This wasn't just an interaction between an officer and a civilian. This was power and race colliding. He had made up his mind, and no matter the truth, he was intent on seeing her put in her place. Handcuffed and placed in the back of his car, Judge Daniels wasn't just fighting for her freedom, she was fighting for justice. She wasn't going to let this moment pass without holding him accountable, no matter the cost. As the officer proceeded to fabricate charges against her, Judge Daniels silently cataloged every illegal action, every violation of her constitutional rights. She knew what had to be done. Her silence in the back of that car wasn't submission, it was preparation. She was already thinking of the lawsuit she was going to file. The charges he made against her would be proven false. Her driving was completely legal. She hadn't been belligerent, nor had she resisted arrest, and the truth would come to light. When she was finally booked at the county jail, it became more clear how deep the corruption ran. Cooper had told the jailers that she was a career criminal and a fraud, but the intake officers immediately recognized her true identity. They called the courthouse, and within minutes it was confirmed. Judge Monica Daniels was who she said she was. What followed was a series of events that no one could have predicted. Cooper's actions didn't just destroy his own career, they exposed a deep systemic problem within the police department. Investigators, internal affairs, and even the FBI were soon involved. What started as an unlawful arrest turned into a landmark case about racial profiling, police misconduct, and the abuse of power. It didn't take long for the evidence to mount up. Dashcam footage, the audio recording from her phone, and witness statements all painted a picture of abuse. What Cooper had assumed would be just another routine stop, another target for his misguided sense of justice, ended up as his downfall. His career, built on lies and manipulation, would crumble under the weight of the truth. The moment of victory came after months of legal battles, civil rights investigations, and public outcry. A federal lawsuit was filed, not just against Officer Cooper, but against the entire police department for creating and enabling a culture of racial bias. The investigation revealed something even more disturbing. Cooper's actions were not an isolated incident. He had a pattern of targeting successful black professionals, doctors, lawyers, business owners, and he had done so for years. In court, the evidence was overwhelming. The audio recordings, the dashcam footage, and testimony from countless victims all told the same story: an officer abusing his power to humiliate and control those he deemed beneath him. The jury found Cooper guilty of violating Judge Daniels' civil rights, and the damages were substantial: $6 million in total. $2 million in compensatory damages for the emotional toll, and $4 million in punitive damages to send a message to law enforcement everywhere. But the victory didn't stop there. The police department was placed under federal oversight. The city was forced to pay millions in settlements, and there were sweeping changes made to police training and policies. Officer Cooper's life, on the other hand, had been irreparably destroyed. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. What happened next shocked the nation. Cooper's supervisor, Sergeant David Walsh, and Police Chief Roberto Martinez were also held accountable for their roles in the misconduct. The consequences didn't stop with Cooper. His actions exposed the rot at the heart of the department. Judge Daniels, who had once been just another professional doing her job, became a symbol of resilience, of standing up against injustice, and of the power of one voice to spark change. She used her platform to advocate for broader police reform, helping to reshape the way police misconduct was addressed across the country. As for Officer Cooper, he would never wear a badge again. His name became synonymous with abuse of power and racism, and he would spend the next 15 years behind bars, his life and career destroyed by his own actions. And in the end, Judge Daniels had the last word. The woman who had once been humiliated, harassed, and targeted by a corrupt system emerged victorious. Her case wasn't just a win for her, it was a win for justice, for the thousands of people who had been unfairly targeted, and for the system that needed to change. Have you ever witnessed police misconduct firsthand? Do you believe there's a systemic issue within law enforcement when it comes to racial bias and discrimination? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What should be done to prevent stories like this from happening again? Let's continue the conversation and work towards a more just and equal future. Judge Daniels' journey wasn't just about one officer's wrongdoings. It was about standing up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you. Her story shows us that even in the face of systemic injustice, accountability can and will be achieved.